Every city you burn, I'm gonna build one high.
Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and it is September 28th, YC125. And you thought we were going to talk about the new event, but how? We're going to talk about FanFest. This is a bait switch. This is the Eve Universe show. No, we will talk about the event, but first I wanted to make sure, because we got a couple of guests today, both of whom are intimately tied to what's going to be happening with the event and everything, but also both of you went to FanFest. So let's introduce the panel. First and foremost, we have a friend of the show, Dutch Gunner, who recently ran for CSM again, got within the top 20. One of the most well-known studiers of drifter technology that we have in the game, now that Uriel has betrayed us all to the other side. Welcome, welcome, Dutch Gunner.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
How you doing today?
Doing relatively well. Unfortunately, I was one of those people that caught the COVID at FanFest, so I'm sounding a bit nasal. Focus isn't what it used to be normally, but thankfully I can still do stuff like this.
Well, good news. The Arydanika Research Consortium may have just become one of the most wealthiest alliances in New Eden, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. First, another good friend of the show, who I hope I am a good friend of his show, though maybe not for long, given my future path. But either way, the head of the Federation Frontline Report, Frozen Fallout. How you doing?
Doing great, doing great. My voice is also a little bit wrecked, but not because I got sick, but because I was just shouting and talking during the entire event. FanFest was epic, and man, it's great to be on the show, and you are always going to be a friend, no matter what, man. Like, you will always be seen in good light, no matter if we're shooting each other or if we're shooting with each other.
I've got Frozen is loud. Hold on, let me check on the balances a little bit. Yeah, and you know, so far it looks like we're going to be siding with the Angel Cartel, so we won't necessarily be crossing paths in a negative light.
Hey, my alt is going to be in Angel Cartel, so we will be really good buddies then.
Are you desiring to become invited?
Yeah, probably. We'll see. I've kind of trying to see what my path is going to be for that. If I'm going to make a special corporation for that, or if I'll just join up with maybe you.
Well, so one of the specific things that we did was, or why I made it an alliance instead of a corporation, is so that way, if people want to bring in a corporation, you can just bring in the entire corp.
Well, that might be the path that we go down, because yeah, I plan on that. One of the plans was to make a corporation for the Angel Cartel and kind of link it in with the Federation Frontline, but it'll be our pirate organization, which we're already pirates, but we're privateers right now.
Privateers, exactly. I've always said that, right? What do you call a pirate that gets paid by the man? A privateer, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So we do want to talk a little bit about FanFest for sure, especially since you guys were both there. We're just going to start. I mean, like, obviously I've done a few reviews of the keynote and some of the panels. Have you gotten a chance to watch mine yet?
No, I have not.
Okay, I revoke friend of the show. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You should though. Like, I've been told that they're pretty decent. No, but so is there anything particularly interesting that you think that might not have been called out during the FanFest keynote or during the Havoc panel that might be useful to know?
The only one thing comes to mind, like last year when they announced the faction warfare changes, like we were one of the few that said, look, it's a test case. If it goes well, they might as well roll it out and include pirate factions. And lo and behold, 1 year later.
Well, but what did they say this year, though? That's what I want to know.
I thought I saw something about maybe faction warfare style like conquering is going to be maybe coming to 0.0. It was like a very very quick blurb on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's in the keynotes, but did you guys go to any of the other panels, like the RP panel or any of the ones that weren't televised? I know that there were several of the redacted panels that weren't televised.
I always go to the lore panel, no matter what.
Okay. Anything interesting from there?
And I would say that they are certainly looking at expanding the current corporation tools to also look at other options with the current objectives that you can create as a corporation, to even give more tools like that to tailor to what corporations or group might be trying to achieve. So they're probably looking at what is useful, how can we implement and expand upon what we have while it's still going to be useful. So it's definitely going to be interesting what's going to be coming later down the line.
I've heard that they gave some details about like the lore events that we saw last year, like the Shipcaster and the Turner incident and stuff like that. Do you remember anything about that? Because I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen anything from CCP, but I've heard like musings.
Nothing comes to mind right now, but I will admit my memory is affected a bit. So it
That's
could be
fair.
that
That's
it's
fair.
not coming to the surface right now.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so also I had just been hearing from a couple of people that they were showing off some new UI. Did either of you guys get to play around with that?
I did not.
Oh my God, you guys are
No,
useless.
yeah, I know. Well, the one thing that I did go to the Q&A for the Havoc panel, and
Yeah.
I don't believe that was televised.
It was not.
There wasn't. I didn't feel like there was a lot that they really revealed there, except that I know that a lot of people started freaking out about the Edencom coming in.
Right.
And they kind of were like, yeah, it seemed like they took a good like a few steps back from that, and they were like, yeah, maybe not Edencom, but if we do Edencom, they wouldn't probably attack any faction warfare people.
Right. And that's an interesting idea. Because so Edencom right now is based on your relationship with the Triglavians. If you attack Edencom, you gain Triglavian standings. If you attack Triglavians, you gain Edencom standings. If you go into Pochvin, you kill rogue drones and sleepers and drifters, then you can get standings with both, right? But there are some people that have just totally tanked their Edencom standings for various reasons, maybe because they sided with the invasions during that time, or they grinded up Triglavian standings so they could go into Pochvin when that was necessary, or maybe they did it now in order to be able to use the station services. Either way, the point is that we have faction warfare dudes that are that Edencom are angry at. So now suddenly, if they work hard to protect the system, the very police that come and attack to protect it might attack them. That's the concern, right?
Yeah.
It is very strange. It is a very
Why
strange thing.
isn't
It's
it?
also true. It's also true that like the pirates, like so many people have dual standings now that having Edencom fleets seems silly.
Yeah, I'm
Not
wondering
really.
why isn't it the the Federation or the Kaldari, or why isn't it their troops that would come in and secure the spot?
Because then it would start to affect faction warfare, because if the controlling side's navy spawns and starts, for example, roaming fleets, the
Oh.
opposing faction is going to have that much more opposition. And
Yeah,
therefore have an unfair disadvantage, or the other team would have an unfair advantage compared to a non-faction warfare entity like Edencom. So
Yeah,
I
but I
can
thought that they
see
were
why they would have
saying
gone for Edencom instead of standard navy forces.
But I thought that that was kind of rolled up into it, was the idea that you should be siding against or for, the Guristas or whatever for a little while because they're assaulting the space, and that there is going to be already a huge effect on faction warfare, just from them invading and what areas they are invading.
well, it's really interesting because, like, I've been thinking about this from a faction warfare perspective, and you might have some insight into this. Like, the point is that these are happening in frontline systems. These are systems that are the most hotly contested systems in the war zone. And it's like suddenly, as a siege is happening, we show up and just start mucking about. And also, they said that once it reverts, so it sounds to me like once we get it fully infected, that basically pauses the faction warfare in that system, and then it reverts to the original owner at 0 when it goes back. And I see this as an incredibly interesting tactical asset for those who already own the system and are trying to defend it, right? Like,
I was talking to CCP Burger about this a little bit, and he was talking about how, like, when you get like 2 orbital bodies, you know, you kind of really predictable, but as soon as you add in like a third,
the 3-body problem, yeah.
you get some problems, and it's gonna be a little bit of chaos, and that's kind of what the whole point is of this. And I really, you know, it's going to be, you know, do you side with the Guristas when they're assaulting the Kaldari? Do you, you know, do you just team up with the Kaldari and help them, you know, shoot them? You know, like what, you know, and will that change based upon where this is happening, when it is happening? You know, lots of things that are just kind of going into this that I think I cannot wait to cause havoc with my alt. Like Rifter is going to be
with your alt, yes.
Yes, because, you know, Frozen Fallout has been with the Gallente since pretty much day one of faction warfare. I've been in and out, got stolen away by the goons and stuff like that when they were partying hardcore in Madtown. But you know, I've got a really strong loyalist. I was torn, man. I was like the moment they announced that, I was like, shit. I'm gonna have to drop my podcast and all this other stuff and completely redo everything because
that's why I'm doing that for you.
Yes,
so you can just slip in there.
And I've got an alt with a lot of skill points that normally just does hauling for me. Like that's all that he does is some hauling. So he's got a shit ton of skill points though, and he could totally do PvP. And somebody was like, "Why don't you just make a different hauling alt? Because that's super cheap on the, you know, skill point wise." And then use your good alt to go cause havoc. And I was like, done. Now that okay, I'm staying with Frozen Fallout. Rifter's going to the Angels.
Excellent. That's a good name for an Angels Cartel member too.
Yeah. Rifter.
Hey, sorry in advance. Yeah. I don't know if you want to spoil some of that stuff, but all right. So let's see. In that case, what is the thing that you will remember most about your FanFest journey this time? We'll start with Dutch again.
Could you repeat the question?
What do you remember most? What is your highlight of the entire FanFest?
I would say the reveal of Zarzakh and the Fulcrum.
How did that feel being there? Like I was literally at the gate and was through it within like a minute of it opening. But you guys are like there watching us do it. Did you guys feel cheated at all?
Not really, because before the reveal, they did reassure the people with, hey, just because you're at FanFest, we are aware that you can't act on it right now. So don't worry, the reveal is now, but you still have plenty of time to get home, get settled, get acquainted with everything before everything really starts to kick off.
Yeah, I was really concerned about that with it being like if you're going to do an in the moment reveal, I thought that they were going to just open up the LAN party to you guys so that way you could interact with it right away. But yeah, that was probably the biggest thing that I nailed on the prediction was that like things were going to happen at the live stream. But I guess that's kind of obvious. But the idea of Zarzakh opening. Also, I do want to announce, since Sorry in Advance is here, the invited will be working hand in glove with Sorry in Advance. We're not, you know, obviously they're their own alliance with their own identity, but we're creating kind of like a coalition of sorts. So if you're interested in getting involved with Zarzakh and you want to become one of the invited, please DM me or like put in an application or email me and hop into our Discord, the Convocation of Empyrean Discord at the moment. And we will get you guys involved, especially with the event now starting. We're going to be working on being able to do this event, because it is not clickbait to say that this is probably the most dangerous event that I've ever seen. But spoilers. Well,
I do have
So
to say that I did feel a little bit like, wait a minute, what? They just said that we wouldn't miss out on anything, and then like we missed out on the initial opening, but it doesn't really matter because like it's not like the station's accessible. All I missed out on is dying, probably.
all you missed out on was the bloodbath, which was
Yeah.
ridiculous. Thousands of ships died there. We went in with a team of marauders and got wiped out there just to be like, because we started the invited alliance, so we had to put our name out there. So we just went with like some really nice Vargers and sat on the top of the fulcrum until we got taken out, which wasn't that long, actually. About 30 minutes later, well, it was short enough that we were pretty sure that they didn't like scout us or anything, because Zarzakh, you can't probe anybody and you can't descan. So it was a fleet of, I think, TFIs, and it was like 10 Guardians and 2 Zarmaz. So like we weren't going to break anything at all, and they just kind of took us down. It was great.
Not to mention the fun part with the fulcrum is that the I'm just gonna call it hitbox for now. The hitbox of that station is so big that on
So
that
big.
grid you cannot cloak, because you cannot get more than 2 kilometers away from that station and cloak up and still be
No.
within the protective area.
I have
The other
been
areas
on that
are okay,
grid.
but-
No, I've been on that grid and cloaked. I'll just say that.
Okay.
Above
Well,
it, you can cloak.
Oh, well, that's good.
But-
I did flying around a lot, and I was like, nope, not here, not here, not here, not here. So I guess I missed a good spot.
I warped in at 50, and I came in like up a little bit off the plane, and I didn't decloak. And that was the when I first broke in. But yeah, the problem with warping to the fulcrum isn't just how big it is, but it's like so the warp in is at the very top. And so depending on which of the other grids you warp in from, I warped in at like 70 or 50, I think it was. And I literally warped into the structure.
Yep.
And it was like, oh, that's not great for a Stratios. Yeah, it was from Turner. But I don't remember. I think it was straight from Turner Gate, possibly.
I had the same experience.
But the thing is that like, there's literally right now, what is it, 25 different warp-in points on any given grid? Period.
Don't know.
Well, think about it. There's 6 sites, right? And so even if you're at the one where they're all from different directions, that's 5 sites you can warp in from. You can't warp at 100. So it's 10, 30, 50, 70. I think they're and 0, obviously.
And
so
the standard ones, like you can still enter a manual one, but you don't have to go too far. Yeah, you can select a manual warp to distance.
I guess that's true. Wait, yeah. Yeah, it's delayed local too. You can set default warping. Okay, fine. Fair enough. It's a much more painful process then. How about that?
Yeah, you're going to end up default warping by accident all over the place then.
Yes, if you warp in from the observatory to the fulcrum, you're at a very low angle, which is that's where you do not want to warp into the fulcrum from. Which is interesting because, again, or a little bit of a spoiler, but as part of this event, one of the steps in this process is bringing this stuff to the fulcrum to drop it off. So you have to get there, drop it off, and get out. And everyone knows that that's the place that people are going to have to go. And each thing that you drop off, each token that you get from that is going to be worth a pirate BPC. So that's the choke point, right? But we'll get to that again in a little bit. Let's see. Frozen. I don't think we went over your favorite part of or your standout moment.
I've got a few, but I think just to be kind of quick about it, the going to the memorial and finding my name, then going finding some friends' names. And
you found my name. I appreciate it.
Your name. And then I got some more requests, so I went back like the next day and found some more names. And then after the party at the top of the world and the after party, I got another bunch of requests. So at like 2 a.m. in the morning, we walked down to the memorial, got a little bit more sober, did the finding of the names for the last like batch, so I found like, I don't know, 20 plus names for people. And then we drove back on those scooter thingies or whatever the heck they are, like the that was epic. Like it was like we were just like a little nano gang like running around. um and I would say, other than that, like the just talking with devs all day long, like, and just meeting people like Corvus. Oh my god, I like talked to Corvus like a whole bunch during the entire time that we were there, hanging out with CCP Aurora. Burger, CCC Burger was awesome. Like he was super excited to talk to
That
me
dude
about
has
stuff.
so much energy when he's like seriously, when he's on stage, that's actually him subdued. Like, get him in a private convo and get it talking about something he's geeked up about, and he is like the geekiest dude.
Yeah,
I
I'm,
think
I'm
the
working
one
on.
No, I think the one thing a lot of people underestimate or just not realize is how extremely motivated and excited all the people working at CCP are about the game.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and like I go to Gen Con and stuff like that. I brought my wife. She plays a little bit of Eve, but she's like usually super excited about like Gen Con and stuff like that. She was like, "This was better than Gen Con, just for the ability to go meet and hang out with people." And like, it was, and like there, it's so easy to talk to them. It's unbelievable how easy it is to just go up and talk with devs, especially when you're on like the bar crawl or you're at the top of the world. And like I got to meet CCP Guard, who is no longer with CCP, but that was like, oh my god. Like, this is so cool.
He's with us in our hearts.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that's cool. Awesome. And did you catch the death?
No, I somehow avoided it, but I had caught the death like a month before this. After it was Gen Con, so August is
Oh,
when I caught the death.
so you
So
were already you had con crud, like you had this year's con crud already worked out.
right, yeah. So it was just my voice was gone like day 2. Like I was waking up and I had frogs in my throat and it was ridiculous. Yeah. So I got really lucky that I didn't get some other version of the Cron Crud, because I can't miss any more work. I've taken too many vacations.
That's fair. All right. Well, I guess, is there anything else that we want to talk about when it comes to FanFest, or should we just jump into what's happening?
Let me think here for just a second.
The Northern Light tours were amazing.
Oh yeah, the
The what?
Northern Lights were really
Oh,
awesome.
yeah. Did you guys did either of you spend too much time doing the Iceland stuff, or?
I went to like the Blue Lagoon, and didn't
Did you
get
go
to
to the
go on
penis
the.
museum?
No, we were talking about that a lot though. And there's also the Punk Museum. We got to go like look at where it was, and it's like this underground like weird thing.
I'm
Looks so cool.
disappointed in you.
I know. Well, we're going back 2015, 25. I've already got my FanFest tickets for me and my wife, and we are definitely going back.
I did notice that they're quote unquote skipping a year, but they're also bringing it back into the spring. So it's more like they're just doing a FanFest every year and a half now. Did they say anything about that?
Yeah, they didn't really go into specifics, but that's kind of how I kind of saw it, was that this was a special thing that I don't know if they're going to do it in this time period again. Doesn't
I think it worked out really, really well because it was just in time to be able to announce their winter expansion, but whatever.
right. So, but normally, I mean, almost all the time it's in May, right? Or like right around that.
Well, yeah, they have the spring expansion and the winter expansion.
But I mean,
Okay.
I'm saying the FanFest itself is almost
Yes,
always
it's usually April,
right. So
May.
So I think that they're going to go back to that probably yearly schedule, but they're
Yeah.
taking a little bit of a break here because
Well,
it
yeah,
would
because
be too
otherwise it'd be
close.
6 months.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And
So
in 2025, they'll be back at the Harpa.
right. And didn't they say that they're going to do other things, almost like not exactly like the Invasion World Tour, but it sounds like they've got plans for next year anyways.
That's true, yeah.
Very cool. Okay.
Do we know when Vegas is going to be?
No, that's usually put on. That's actually
That's
one of the
somebody
things
else, but-
I want to know, which is that, like, are they actually going to bring? So the idea was that the Eve Vegas that we went to in 2019 was the last Eve Vegas by CCP, and they were going to move to California, right? San Francisco, I think. Either way, you know, the big con area there near Disneyland. But obviously that didn't happen in 2020. And so now that things are kind of gone back, it'll be interesting to see whether or not they go back to Vegas or if they look for that or go to that new site. That's what I'm curious about.
I really hope they go back to Vegas because I just recently went to Vegas and I found out that like I can get a flight to Vegas for like $100, you know, direct flight.
Oh,
And
nice.
every time I
Yeah.
try to get to frickin' California, it's like, oh, there's a layover, and they're like, yeah, you have a 3-day delay. What?
Oof. Yeah, Vegas, they want to get you, they want to make the trip to and from Vegas as easy as possible.
It's cheaper than Uber almost. Like,
Yeah. That's actually really funny. It's probably literally true, actually, depending on where you're coming from. Yeah, it was supposed to be San Diego. That's what it was. All right. So what about Vanguard?
oh, super excited. I was a huge Dust 514 lover, so I'm gonna jump on this one because that was with the ability to bombard from outer space in a spaceship directly connected to an MMORPG, fucking genius.
Right.
But so I was talking, I can't remember which one of the devs I was talking to, but I was told that CCP got paid a shitload of money by Sony to set
Oh,
this
yeah.
up on PlayStation. They didn't build the code. There was like Unreal 3, like super customized or something like that, where like it just was not going to work on PlayStation 4.
Yes.
It wasn't going to work on the PC. They could put an insane amount of dev time into that, but then basically the payout they got wouldn't be really worth it. So, you know,
Right.
cut
That-
your
and that-
losses, make a new game that will be, you know, better and not on Unreal 3.
Right. Well, so it was on Unreal 3, which was before Unreal went open source. And so it didn't really have multi-platform support either at that time. But also the PlayStation 3 in particular was an incredibly proprietary system. And so converting it from PS3 to anywhere else would
Even
be
PS4.
trying to recreate because PS4 went with a more standardized system architecture.
Yeah, and that and so that, and I mean, it was really lousy timing on CCP's part to not be like, well, can we wait or something, you know, like because all of a sudden PS4 came out, what was it, like 6 months or maybe a year after Dust 514 came out.
And say what you will about whether or not you personally like a shooter. You know, Brad in chat says that it looks like it's a waste of time and boring gameplay, and he echoes a common sentiment because, you know, internet spaceship nerds, first-person shooter, the Venn diagram is not a circle. I'll put it that way. So the thing is, though, that if you look back at Dust 514, we got so many new members that you like. I don't think that people really respect how many people converted from Dust 514 to EVE Online. And more importantly, those are, in my experience, the most fanatical EVE players. Like, if you just ask around people that have played this game for a long time, there's a really good chance that if you talk to them, like more than you would expect, that they got brought in because of Dust 514, especially if they're like really into, like, maybe not the lore, but like, you know what I mean? Like the empires and that kind of stuff. I know a lot of really fanatical, because so the way it was explained to me was like, there's a dude who's just like, oh, look, it's the latest shooter clone. I'll go check this out. And, you know, because he likes shooters. And so he's going to go try it out. And then he tries it out and he likes it. But then he realizes, wait a minute, what I'm doing is affecting this. There's an entire other game to this. And that like hooks him, right? Like that idea of like, oh, this is just the doorway, right? Like that's a big That's a
This
big
is going to be
funnel point.
huge because, from my understanding, is if you got Eve, you've got this Vanguard. If you've got Vanguard,
Right.
you've got Eve. Like your $20 a month now is paying for 2 video games that you will have access to, regardless of whether you want to play the other game. You've got access to it, which will just easily draw people in. Like 100% will. That's gonna be. I'm gonna get all my like. I've got a friend who I'm trying to get to play Eve, but she's like, yeah. But when I told her about the first person shooter, she's like, all right, well,
Yeah,
that
here we go.
we'll we're gonna do like. And there's a lot of people that I know that are like super excited for a first person shooter that's tied directly into Eve Online, because Eve is just so expansive, player driven, epic, but they like their first person shooters and that's what they want to
Yeah.
play. But we can, I think we can slowly convert them, like you said.
Well, yeah, because like in the same way, if they're going to use equipment, they're going to want to start manufacturing equipment, which means they're going to start getting into industry. But that's all on the Eve side, right? So there's a lot of potential there. But so somebody's asking, how did Dust affect Eve exactly? So we could bombard their places, but in faction warfare, they could influence how many victory points were required to take a system.
Kind of
which
like
actually,
Advantage now.
Except there's a reason why, so Advantage is a fixed version of this. This is one of the reasons why, in my opinion, they didn't just convert Dust 514. Because even if you just directly ported Dust 514, there was some design flaws baked deep within Dust that they never quite solved. So, I remember when we did a fight over Hades, it actually became more advantageous for us to just throw the matches as the Gallente to make it so that the amount of loyalty or victory points that they required was as low as possible. So that way the iHub would go into vulnerable. But then as soon as they start jumping into the game as both Caldari and Gallente and throwing the matches to Caldari, which pulls the system out of vulnerable, because even if they're like halfway through the bash, if it pulls it out of vulnerable, it resets everything. So now we're plexing in all the different plexes and also jumping into Dust to try to increase the amount of victory points that they require to be able to take the system. And so that's
meta gamers.
That's not great. That's not what you want. That wasn't quite the interaction that they were looking for. But also because we couldn't convert, there's one time that Amar managed to convince the Dust militia to work for them on the promise that someday our economies will be united and then they would be able to pay them. But they never actually happened. So it was always kind of wonky. But I think that this is going to be a really, a much better example, because the situation is direct. The sides are less limited, or more limited rather, in the fact that if you're raiding things trying to cause chaos as the Deathless cult, or circle, or whatever you want to call it, the idea of throwing the match, I think, makes a lot less sense in that context. I think that they just have a lot more that they can do when it comes to actually exploring the environment, especially since it looks like the environments are going to be static environments that you can that can be reused and you could go back to for resources or something.
Yeah, I didn't quite get. I wish I would have gone to the panel for that, but it was completely booked up. Even the extra overflow room was nope, you can't go in there if you didn't get there in 5 minutes. So, but I'm also really excited to see the PVE elements as well,
Right.
because I love Dust 514, but as a pure PvP shooter, I'm kind of one of those people that every once in a while I kind of want to go do some PvE activities with a shooter, because I don't want to be I'm hardcore PvP in Eve, but shooters, I just want to kind of relax a little bit sometimes when I'm playing them, and I feel like I can't do that in a PvP environment. So I'm interested to see how much PvE activity that there is, and if there's any PvE activity that doesn't involve PvP.
Exclusively PvE activity.
Right.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think that, okay, my suspicion is that there's a lot more to Vanguard than what they've revealed to us, right? Right now they've kind of set it up that Eve Vanguard is all about the Deathless, but what about the Blood Raiders? What about Mordu's army? What about the other Merc groups. I think that what we've seen so far may represent a way the game can be played, but not the only way, if that makes sense. Like there might be other modes or other groups to work for different activities. And they may actually increase this over time. They may just start with Deathless, but it really seems like one of the things I find really interesting is we're going to get the Crimson Harvest event between now and Havoc. And we also get the winter event at around the same time as the first playtest for the shooter. So the question is, does the Blood Raiders, who've been collecting war clones for the last several years, mostly because they like the blood, are they going to have something to say about the Deathless, or will Deathless have something to say about the Crimson Harvest? And likewise, will Sancha somehow get involved now that the Mercs are back in town, as it were? And of course, the final question is, how does this have to do with the other?
I think CCP is looking at the different factions, but the one thing that Delicate Zero confirmed at the lore panel is that some pirate factions or some factions are easier to work with than others.
I mean, that's true.
Sunshine and Blood Raiders are not that easy to work with.
Well, it depends. They have the what's it called? The Deathglow Hunters. They're a little bit more reasonable. But yeah, the other thing about this is that I really like the idea that they're pushing this as not even like a separate game, but more like a separate game mode, right? One game. And so like if you pay for your Omega, you'll have your 3 Eve characters and then like your Vanguard clone. And you'll be able to select which one you want to drop in.
I really like the slogan of on the ground as it is in the air. Or no, on the ground
as above, so below. As above, so below. Which is a very, very esoteric statement. Or not esoteric, but like, esoteric. Like they didn't make that statement up. Generally speaking, it comes from the term that means like, it's as above, so below, as within, so without. So we're talking about like, as on earth, so is in heaven, as within you, so without. So it's like, it's basically saying that, the divine reflects the physical world and your internal world reflects the external world and vice versa.
Like dogma.
Yeah. So, it's an older version of like those kinds of concepts, but I found it really interesting, especially since we have, the Garistus is called the Episthetics or whatever. Yeah. One world, one vision. There's a lot of like very interesting, like occulty terminology showing up recently.
The occult is strong in this one.
It doesn't help the fact that like the Angel Cartel are based on like a lot of Hebrew and Kabbalistic traditions and Sumerian.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of earth in Eve. I wonder why that is. Maybe because we came from Earth? I had somebody be because I was like talking about Valhalla at one point in time, and they were like, "How the hell do they know about Valhalla? That's an Earth thing." And I was like, "How the fuck do they know what a Ragnarok is?"
Yeah, and the idea is that these words like echo through their culture, even though that they don't they don't necessarily even like remember its original meaning. But a lot of that falls apart when that rogue drone had the play, the lines from that play. That is there's a Czechoslovakian, I think it was, play from like the 1930s or whatever. That was like the very first instance. Yeah, Roar. It was the very first use of the word robot. And so they like it's lines from that play. And the issue with that is that one of those lines, which these are all in binary, one of those lines, the person refers to a real life warlord from like the Greek era. So you now have a very, very direct reference to something that is hard to say. Like, it had to have been preserved basically intact. But the other half of that is that might be an implication of how well preserved the Triglavians' information are, because like the Triglavians are Slavic and it's a Slavic poet or like, play. But either way, I digress. That was a huge diversion. Either way, anything else about FanFest, or should we jump into the event?
If you have an opportunity to do so, I highly recommend going, because just the atmosphere in general, meeting people that you might have been flying for years within the game, like, it is a completely different experience. Not to mention, it's a golden opportunity to experience Iceland, because during FanFest, you'll have adjusted prices for hotel stays, for tours. So it's a good opportunity to have an amazing experience.
Yeah, and if you like
Yeah.
go around to different places, like they'll be like, "Oh, you are part of FanFest, so you get a discount on certain items and stuff like that." And yeah, to echo that, like, yeah, definitely check it out. Like, I go to a lot of conventions, winter or midwinter. I go to Origins, I go to Gen Con, I go to all these different kind of conventions throughout the years. And I've been going to Gen Con for like 15 years, and this just blows Gen Con out of the water. So if you like cool like convention type kind of stuff and you want to go to and you like Eve. I mean, there's so many people that are like, I quit Eve like 5 years ago, but I still go to FanFest every year.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to other cons too, and I've been to Eve Vegas, not Eve FanFest, but like, there is something about, because we're so used to. I would like to say that most Eve players are probably used to being the only person in their like real life that plays Eve. So the idea of like being in an environment, a physical environment that's like all Eve and everyone's talking about Eve and they all are talking about different corners of Eve. And the other problem is that Eve is all about like little bubbles, right? Like, if you're in your wormhole community, you only like, you may not have any idea what the high sec life is like, or concerns are like, or even what's going on the next system over if you don't pay attention. So, it's a really interesting place to meet all kinds of really interesting people, and the single sharded universe of EVE Online makes it this really interesting place where it's not just you're meeting other EVE fans, but you're meeting that guy, over and over and over again.
Shooting at, and
oh my God, I fucking killed you. Oh, dude, how's it going, man? Let me get you a beer. Whatever.
Yeah.
Like, there's just something to be said about that. It transcends things.
Also, it's like the easiest way. Like, you can easily identify who is at FanFest, usually just by the badge, but also like we kind of look, a particular set of people sometimes. And it just is, it's the easiest is to walk up to somebody and be like, who do you fly for? And then like you just sparks the conversation. You can do that with anybody, which is kind of fucked up. Like, because you can't do that at Gen Con or any other convention. You can go up to somebody, what do you play?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll go off on something, but to them that would be kind of weird, a little bit. There's like still that kind of weird. With this, it's like, no, that's what we want. Well, that's what we're here for, to talk
Also,
about.
like, general cons, there's almost like this underlying unspoken nerdiness competition, right? Where like everybody has their little fandom, and it's so like they're either cosplaying it or they have their little token or whatever, and like they're there to talk about their thing. And so like you might be able to find your clique. Like, you could go down, like, well, in PAX, like there's the beanbag area, which has all the people with their Nintendo DSs or whatever, right? But like, yeah, it's not the same thing where like I'm going to go around the corner, or I go to the bar, you go to the bar at Eve Vegas or Eve FanFest, and like at a random time, and there's just a bunch of wormholers there, or it's a goons gathering, or, whatever else.
Yeah, no, it's way easier to actually talk to people. And I mean, the thing is that if there are events and things you got to try to get to at FanFest and even Vegas and stuff like that. But like at Gen Con and stuff, it's like I'm usually just in a rush to like get to my events, get to do the things, go to the convention hall so I can go buy all the merch and stuff like that that's going on, and see the cool stuff. So it cuts down on the amount of time you have to like converse with people, where I feel like this is like just a huge social gathering. Is really, you get to see some cool stuff, some events, but really you're there to talk, and that's why my voice is gone.
Right. Well, all right. And so one of the things that I would like to talk about, hey, see that? That's like a transition, is Awakening Zarzakh, Aid the Deathless. Have either of you been like read this stuff yet?
Mm-hmm.
A little bit.
So the new event has started. Zarzakh has been waiting, and the gates have now been opened. The mysterious and ancient star system, accessed via the Jovian gates in Turner, Alsavoinen, HTAC PA29, and GTAC OQ86 solar systems, is controlled by the Deathless Circle, with their Angel Cartel and Gristis pirate allies granted sanctuary within. However, from deep inside the enormous Jovian station called the Fulcrum, where he resides, the Deathless needs Capsuleer's assistance to bring this mammoth station's power back up to full operating potential. Between now and the 14th of November, so this is going to be a long one, guys, to aid the Deathless Circle in their endeavor, you'll need to raid specific wormhole sites to collect resources and return them to Zarzakh, where you'll be rewarded with pirate loyalty point tokens. Answering the call also means that you have your standings with the Angels and or Garistas will improve, which could be useful once the Havoc expansion arises. Manufacturing coalesced elements from blueprints and individual elements that drop in Drifter Hive wormhole sites, and collect the element containment vessels from Sleeper relic sites in standard wormholes, plus element controlled data from Sleeper data sites. Then return one of each to the Fulcrum in Zarzakh in exchange for a single pirate LP token. These LP tokens can be traded in with an existing Angel Cartel or Garistas LP store for blueprint copies of the new Angel Cartel Mercubal class destroyer and Garistas Mamba class destroyer. So, and then in the patch notes, they actually do specify that you have to bring one of each of these things to the Deathless, to the Fulcrum, and turn it in using the access feature. And one loyalty token, it looks like it's a 1-for-1. So you get a loyalty point token, and then you can take that back to the Angels and the Garistas and either turn it in for one Mamba or one Mercable BPC. Also, you can turn in just the Sleeper components to the Angel Cartel or the Garistas for 5 million each as a commodity. And you could also just turn in the Deathless Circle loyalty token. That instead of getting a BPC, you could just get 50 million ISK. So also, the Society of Conscious Thought is awarding 5 million ISK for each elemental containment vessel and elemental control data brought to their stations in Geminate. So there are options for what to do with this stuff. Do you guys got anything to chime in with so far?
Finally, there's a clear purpose for the coalesce elements.
Yeah. How much did the net worth of Arydanika Research Consortium grow within the last, I don't know, hour or two?
Probably considerably, if people really want to get their hands on the different elements, especially the coalesced elements.
But real talk, is Arydanika Research Consortium thinking about like opening up their vaults for this?
There's an internal discussion happening on what to do.
On behalf of the invited, I would like to begin negotiations.
Nah, but on serious talk, like ARC has been one of the few, maybe even the only one over the years that have been running public fleets into the different hives. Will continue to do so. But considering their importance now, any future fleet is going to be limited to 30 people's max, because otherwise we'd have to spend hours and hours and hours for each single fleet. So if people do want to get their hands on the elements and they're not sure how to progress, keep an eye out for the ARC Discord for pings. And yep, there's room for 30 people per fleet.
Awesome. We're also, I think Frozen's running short on time. So do you have any final thoughts? Or anything you want to talk about before you leave?
The only thing that I would like to kind of leave off with, I guess, is that Eve FanFest, like super. I mean, I've already got a podcast and stuff like that I do for Eve. And I love Eve. I've been playing it for like 17, 18 years now. But after going to FanFest, like I've been like super invigorated We're doing a completely rebranding of everything. Everything for us will be the Federation Frontline Report moving forward. And just we're going to be kicking it into a high gear. And if you want to get involved with mercenary type stuff, we're part of the network. And we're going to be out there, causing havoc of our own. Not quite tied with the Deathless on that, but we're also going to be looking into, having a Deathless corporation probably for the Angels. And this is it's been awesome coming onto the show. So thank you very much for having me. I wish I could stay a little bit longer, but I am technically on lunch right now.
Right.
So I'm going to drop off here, but
So
this has been epic.
Excellent. Yes. So Federation Frontline Report, you do a weekly?
We
Is it
say
weekly?
weekly. We've taken breaks here and there. We try and get out an episode every Sunday, but expect that to skyrocket to a lot more. I've got an insane amount of interviews that I have scheduled at all different times now. Normally it's at 2200 Eve time on Sundays. We're still going to be shooting to do that, but we'll also be doing interviews all over the place. We do it live on Twitch. Fuck it, we're doing it live. And no fucking editing because that takes up too much time. So we just do it live and put it out there. So I've got scheduled interviews for Saturdays and Sundays all throughout the day. Possibly a couple that are going to be going on during the weekday. But expect Saturday and Sunday we might be getting 3 or 4 episodes a week out pretty soon here with a lot of different interviews.
So I know a lot of my viewers often ask me for updates on the front lines, and his show's really good for that.
Yeah, right now we'll probably be focusing a lot on interviews, but we are going to definitely be putting out some more monthly reports and stuff like that. And then we usually do to just take a look at the map and say, hey, look at we've lost all this territory, we've gained all this territory, or this is where the front lines are at. Also, Nenemelia just fell during FanFest to the Gallente,
which is huge,
because that's a huge stronghold for the Keldari. So we're going to be trying to push that even further, make it a backline or a command operations system so that the Keldari can't dock there, and we'll kick them out of their home.
That's quite the effort because Nenemelia has a built-in huge advantage because it's connected to 6 different systems, I think.
Yes. I remember when that was the stronghold of hope for the Gallente.
Yes.
Back when there was a connection to the Keldari high sec just up the way from there. Can't remember what the system is that was connected, but Nenemelia it's an interesting system. It's got 100 AU warp or something like that, or maybe 60 AU.
It's a great system. It'll be even better with bubbles.
Oh, well, so yeah. Oh, real quick then, that's something too, is that they were talking about how they were going to, you'd be changing sec status to a certain degree. So low sec will become more 0.0 and high.
Well, they specifically said it won't change the sec, but it'll change the properties to be more like.
Right, and they're working out exactly what that means. I believe they said that they weren't 100% sure on bubbles and stuff like that yet, if I'm remembering correctly. And it'd be interesting to see what happens to all the Aster houses and stuff, all the infrastructure that is in high sec, because they did say that one of the things they want to do is just, you go criminal and Concord won't interfere. So if you've got something near the border, be prepared for it to get burned to the ground now that it can get into a state where you just go suspect for shooting the structure.
Yeah. We're pretty sure Heck is screwed.
Oh yeah, it's gone. There's no way that's going to hold out because I'm sure the Deathless, as soon as we find a way to be able to get to Heck, we're going.
We've made a lot. I mean, we've already analyzed that we're going to be able to cut off Amar completely, probably. So, but it will take some orchestrating of both the war zone and our our corruption, because we need the front line to be in the correct place. But
and it's only for a short period of time,
Yeah.
That short period technically is weeks or months, but
yeah, a short period of time, over and over again.
Yeah, as we continue to drag it into that area.
Can't wait. All right, well, I'll let you get back to work.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on, Dutch. Good meeting you, and you guys continue the hard work and kick ass, take names, man.
Hey, thanks for being on the show, and good luck with work and the rest of Faction Warfare you're into.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. You. My Discord. There it is. Whoop. Whoop. It is down to you, and it is down to me.
No pressure.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about drifter wormholes. Now, I know that you've done them quite a bit, but you're not one of the main guys that do them. So we're going to have a lot of maybes and rethinks, right?
Yes.
Okay, so there are 5 drifter hives, right?
Yes. The Barbican, Conflux, Videt, Redoubt, and Sentinel.
Right. And each one of them can be connected to basically any Jovian observatory in space. All of the systems with the Jovian observatory can also spawn the unidentified wormholes, not unstable wormholes, but unidentified wormholes that show up on the overview, not the probe window.
Correct.
And those will lead to one of the 5 of these systems.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, the site itself, hold on, I have the information on the Barbican pulled up here. The site itself has multiple rooms, right?
Yeah.
How many rooms are there? Looks like there's the warp-in point, and then there's the lobby, the alpha transfer, the beta transfer, the gamma transfer, and then the central hive and the nexus area.
Yeah.
Okay, so I show up at the lobby, or I show up at the warp-in, obviously, and then there's no rats there. I activate the gate, and we go in. It looks like there's 4 gates in that lobby. The Barbican Rift, the acceleration gate, the Barbican Alpha transfer, and the Nexus transfer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what am I doing? What do we do?
Well, the part that makes it a little bit harder for me to comment on it is that on the Drifter Hive fleets, I'm usually one of the lodges, but by now we have the running gag Dutch tank, best tank, because apparently I get targeted by the Doomsdays a lot. So I'm more focused on, we have to go to that tagged gate and make sure nobody dies. So that makes it a bit harder. And the site has changed over the years, because initially what it meant is that you'd have to split your fleet up, where one went for the alpha transfer, the other went for the beta transfer, and then they had to coordinate one to hack something, because they would open up the gate for the other side in order to progress to their next step in the journey. So they would go from like the alpha transfer to the gamma transfer, from the beta transfer to the delta transfer, and from there they could once again meet up in which in the ARC documentation would be called the antechamber. Over time they removed the feature that you actually had to split up your fleet to continue. But if you go in there, there's a couple of things that you have to keep in mind, that there will be roaming groups of sleepers and drifters. I think it's about 30 minutes where they move between the different rooms. So just because you cleared the NPCs in a room doesn't mean you can come back in there and it's still going to be empty.
Right. So the drifter battleship that's here has the Doomsday, right?
Correct. All the drifters in the Drifter Hive site have a Doomsday.
So how do you know what is the traditional way to deal with that at this point?
Traditionally, the way ARC does it is that we make sure that everybody is set up correctly. The drifter is webbed, its tracking disrupted, and there is just this cross-reference between, is it a logi that has the aggro, Is the transversal high enough? Then we pop the overshield that triggers the Doomsday, and based on the transversal and sick radius, we have a very high probability of having the Doomsday miss. Then we kill it, and then we get to move on. A tradition, at least in the earlier days before the current dodging was established, they went in with, we'll go in and we know people are going to lose their ships because whoever gets targeted, sorry, you're going to die. But we moved on from that within ARC.
So I just dropped a couple of links in the Discord. The first, or sorry, in the chat rather. The first is my YouTube video from 2 years ago of me going through the Drifter Hive, which I'm probably going to have to review because I don't even remember like the details of it. But it is there, and it's there in its full glory. And then also I posted, and I have now pulled up your Drifter Doomsday Challenge manual. So basically, one of the things that you guys have done is the Drifter's Doomsday. Well, the Drifter's pretty nasty, right? It hits hard, it moves fast, it has very good E-War, and it has really good range, right? And more importantly,
the battleship weapons have cruiser rate tracking. The cruiser weapons have frigate grade tracking.
With really good range.
Yes.
So these things hit hard, and then on top of that, they also have this overshield that when it's broken, it shoots their Doomsday. And the Doomsday does what, like 100,000 damage of each type?
Depends
crazy?
whether it's a cruiser or a battleship. The battleships has 600,000 Omni.
Yikes. Okay, so, you know, basically, if it hits something, it's going to die. Now, the Drifters do have a couple of weaknesses, though. It is also worth noting that the Drifter Doomsday breaks all locks when it begins to go off.
When the overshield is popped.
Yes. So the Drifter has two basic weaknesses. Its first weakness is that it actually is fairly weak. You can almost accidentally break the overshield if you're not careful with how little hit points they have compared to other battleships, right?
Yep, they're the ultimate glass cannons.
But the real secret to the Achilles heel of the Drifters is their poor tracking for their Doomsday. So
it has a tracking value that you can take advantage of, yeah.
Right, and they've made it better, but that is basically its weakness. It isn't about necessarily tanking the Doomsday. It isn't about stopping the Doomsday. It's about getting the Doomsday to miss. So to that end, you've come up with a formula, right?
Yep. Unfortunately, when that guide was made, it was mainly focusing on phosphine, but the values were the same. In this case, though, they changed the display of how they view the angular velocity. Not sure what the correct term is, from radial to something else, or from that something else to radial, but the values that are in that guide with transversal above 0.2, you don't see those values anymore. I think the current that we're aiming for is 10 plus or 11 plus.
Oh, so you can't get it to whiff now?
You can, Alain. Sorry, switching to Dutch. The difference is that in that guide, we're talking about an angular velocity for example, the 0.20, the 0.21, the 0.22. But if you look at the angular velocity that is displayed in game today, it's not going to show you a 0.2. It's going to be it's going to be higher.
So it's the same number. But it's the same stat, but just displays as a different number because of the way that they display it now. Yeah. Okay. So so the idea now, the question is, can you use tracking disruptors to make the DD tracking worse?
Yes.
But you have to get the lock on and the TDs back on before the Doomsday finishes firing, right?
Correct. That's the big gap. That's the moment supreme, if you will, where if it's a battleship, it takes a 5-second charge. So basically you have to get like a 2-second lock or sub 2-second lock have it apply, and then cover for maybe a tick spare, so that if you activate it between the second or the third second, it will be applying on the fourth before the Doomsday is fired, and it actually makes the calculation.
And the other nice thing is that once you've perfected this, you can also do this in Pochfin, which is a really great way to get standings.
Yep.
And if you want to see it in practice, something tells me that Dutch Gunner, once he recovers, will be leading some fleets to do it in both the Drifter wormholes and in Pochfin. And of course, the Invited are going to be working really hard to make sure that people can do this.
The thing is, like, I focus on a lot of other things. Thankfully, we have another very talented person that covers FCing the Drifter High fleets, and I deliberately kept a bit of a distance from FCing those. So I know a lot of the things. I'm not in a position to run those fleets myself yet, though, because I'm still trying to catch up if I'm going to take those fleet out myself.
Yeah, we're going to have to get things started. I mean, I don't know, like, I didn't expect this to be, well, actually, I think at one point I jokingly commented that this might be a good use for the coalesced elements, but I can't believe the Mad Lads actually did it.
Yep, it's amazing, because all of a sudden there's probably going to be the main bottleneck is probably going to be the coalesced elements.
Right.
And
Although
we've been gathering elements for close, at least 8 years.
Yeah.
With we being ARC fleets to do it.
Correct. So the you pointed out that when you go into the site, you get the index for a different site.
Yeah.
Is that correct? So you can't just do one site and get its reward. You have to do them all, basically.
If you want to get the coalesced element, you have to do them all.
Right. Well, I mean, yes, but I mean, like, well, I mean, the first one you start with, you won't have any of the indexes. So you'd have to go back and do it again once you get that index from somewhere else, right?
I think that's a part that isn't 100% on me. Like, I have figured out with catching up with how certain things work. Like, for instance, if you run the Barbican, you'll have the index for the Conflux. For the Conflux, you'll have the index for the Vidette. From Vidette to Redoubt, Redoubt will have the Sentinel, and then from Sentinel you go back to the Barbican. I do, yeah. It's that starting point that I'm not clear on.
That's fine. We've got plenty of time to figure it out, and maybe starting next week we'll see about like making some good content on how to do it.
There's currently being tested if we're able to run ARC Drifter High fleet this weekend, but we're just forming up to see if everybody's available to do it. And that, unfortunately, due to the real life schedule, that could change on the day itself from the FC Dark Zero. We're trying to do it. It has a reasonable possibility to happen if we have enough of the support, like having enough Guardians and the FC himself. But there's a good chance we'll have at least one Drifter High fleet this weekend. But it's not like we'll run them really quickly. Like, you could probably do it over a weekend if you really find all the right hives, because it's not always a given. Like, it's going to be this hive will be there, this hive will be there. But it's certainly quite a ride and experience.
I will say that this is a great opportunity to experiment with the thing that I've been wanting to experiment with, which is the idea of doing all 5 of the Drifter hives at the same time. And therefore, because like at the very end, you're actually getting a reward for aligning something, but nobody ever knows what that does. So I've always wanted to try it where we get like all 5 into the correct place, so that way we insert all 5 indexes at the same time and see whether or not that actually does something.
It's certainly the ideal moment to do it, because there's going to be a lot of interest.
Yeah, I mean, that takes a lot of coordination and effort. So getting that off the ground has never worked before, but I suspect that this is going to make that a little bit easier. Have I seen the Google Doc for the damage numbers on these sites? I mean, I have probably seen it. I I've only been pulling things together. I actually went live an hour early today, earlier than I was expecting to, because in order to get Frozen Fallout in here. So I'm a little bit still poking at things. Please train chaos. Yes. Yeah, I do appreciate the fact that they're reanimating the old sites instead of just creating new ones, especially since, like, these data sites, I mean, you can even see it in the description here. It says, like, fairly worthless loot. These sites are often left unhacked in favor of taking the blue loot and salvage and leaving, because it's 88 million ISK worth of blue loot and basically nothing in the salvage or in the data site. But now there's these doodads that go for 5 million each in the data sites. What about if multiple fleets go in at the same time, PvP? Oh yeah, if you're in the same hive and you end up in the same pocket, you're in nullsec.
Wormhole space, so PvP is definitely an option.
How often can the hive be run? So you were saying that it has a 30-minute reset time?
Like, I do know that there is a cooldown before things respawn. I want to say 30 minutes, but I'm not 100% sure on that, because once you run the fleet, you do pay on other things. But basically, they can be run non-stop, keeping that cooldown in mind before everything respawns. But yeah, you'll still have those roaming fleets with, I think we call it phase shift, when the roaming fleet, that could include a drifter, switches from room to room.
Right. I suspect that null blocks are just going to buy them up rather than go and run these things themselves, to be honest.
Considering that the coalesced element, the token is bought for 50 million. And if you start counting back with like 5 million for the two elements that are not the coalesced.
Yeah, you've got about 40 million ISK in your budget to get a coalesced if you're going to turn it in for the 50 million. But it's also the source of the BPCs. So of course that's going to be more. And that's why if you look on the market right now, like, those coalesced elements are currently selling for billions, because if you want to get one of the first BPCs, that's the only way to do it.
Yep. This is one of the reasons why, for a change, just keep running content, because you find it entertaining, can pay off in the long run. Because if you're hoarding the stuff, you're collecting the stuff, you get a bit of a stash, a small hoard, and later on it becomes valuable, and it's most likely going to be a bottleneck, then ka-ching.
Yeah. Well, also DOE, like, let's be serious. A lot of this is going to depend on whether or not Arydanika Research Consortium opens up their vaults, because there are people with enough coalesced elements to destroy any market that may exist.
That is likely. Yeah, it's a strong possibility.
So it doesn't have to just be farming them up now. They've been being farmed for 8 years, and no one has been able to do anything with it up until now. So there's a lot of people with a few of them just kicking around in their place.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what's interesting is, in order to make the coalesced elements, you also need an Antikythera element, which you get from intosising the Jovian observatories, which a lot of people were doing already for the indexes, the Jovian indexes for the Epiphany event.
Yep, and it's also part of the loot you can get out of the drifter hives.
That's true. And you also get blue loot and other stuff like that. Like, it's worth a lot of money to do these sites.
You can, especially if you just keep things aside and don't and just create a stash.
True. And you also get Antikythera or antipharmacon drugs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Which are some of the craziest drugs in the game. Let's see. We have antipharmacon Aeolus, which does 8% capacitor modifier. Lokira, maybe? Tracking speed, 8%. Placebo is 8% armor. Thurio is 8% shield boost. And Toxot is 8% missile flight time? Yep.
Oh,
And these don't.
thanks
These do not have drawbacks.
and thanks for confirming, Sutonia, because if you're mostly Logi during the Drifter Hives, those are the things you don't pick up on. So thanks for confirming that you can get elements from killing Sleepers and Drifters too.
Is that new?
I don't know. Like I said,
As in-
I'm mostly Logi, so I
No,
can't
yeah,
confirm.
I'm not asking you. I'm asking Satonia. So, sorry, Dutch, you got outranked. No. So, is it killing drifters? Do you get the different, like the Barbican element? Do you have to kill them in the drifter wormholes to get that, or in the drifter hives themselves? And they've always done that, apparently. Oh, the end. Oh, yeah. No. I knew that Antikythera elements can be dropped from sleepers. Yes, correct. Okay, great. So Antikythera elements drop from drifters, which yes, that is true, as well as from the Jovian observatories, and the Barbican, Redux, all those things for the other 5 elements, right? Come from the drifter hives, and somehow the BPC shows up at some point in this.
Yeah.
So you got the coalesced
I
element.
only know that you can get the BPC from the different hives. I just can't tell you at what point exactly. And if I did have the knowledge, I wouldn't spoil that because I don't want people to try and cheese their way through. It's like, no, if you're going to do it, you'll have to do some digging yourself. But in this case, I don't know where they drop exactly, only that they also drop in hive.
Okay, so this is the coalesced element, right? The actual BPC. Ignore the infinite runs. That's just because we're looking at it as a BPO. So, kill drifters, full sleepers on high set gates. To you, only at that time, not long term.
Do keep in mind that if you're trying to get into the Drifter Hive wormholes, there is a possibility that you'll run into some drifters. Just wait until they pass through the wormhole if you want to enter, and then you're good because they don't spawn on the other side, at least not to date. And if you want to get out, like, be wary. There could be a big surprise on the other side. We haven't run into them yet, but the option is there, so don't just warp in blindly.
Yeah, it's also, that's also a good point, which is that, like, when you warp to one of these wormholes, you actually land like 60, 70 off from the wormhole and then have to burn towards it. And drifters and sleepers can be in that area, and they will shoot on sight when they're there, both on the outside and on the inside. And also, these drifter wormholes are some of the most connected systems in the game. So there will be tons of wormholes connecting to all over the place in each of the drifter wormholes. So there's certainly a certain amount of danger involved in all of this. But, I mean, we got to get these elements somehow. Is there any connection between the hives and Zarzakh structure lore-wise? Well, so this is all about drifter, or Jovian tech, right? So we have Zarzakh, which is Jovian tech. We have the Antikythera elements that are Jovian tech. Drifters are technically Jovian tech, and sleepers too. So this is all about using Jovian tech to boot up Jovian tech, if that makes sense. So that's why there's this this drifter component and sleeper component. But at the same time, remember that I have said for years that one of the reasons why the drifter plot has been kind of on like standby is I said that the drifter plot cannot move forward without the shooter. And as soon as you see the shooters start to be announced, we're going to start to see more stuff happening with the drifters again. And lo and behold, ta-da! Can we talk about what... So there's a new event out, right? So we have to go to the different drifter wormholes, which are specialty wormholes, and run them in order to get these different elements and this BPC, in order to turn them into coalesced elements. Now, this has already existed in the game. People can already have coalesced elements since 2015. Once you get that, there's also 2 new things that we get. Well, let me go look at their names real quick. Oh, just go element. Let me just look up the word element. Element control data. This data has been extracted from Sleeper Databank and appears to be provide a partial schema for a set of control algorithms capable of utilizing and regulating the strange and powerful coalesced elements associated with drifter hives. Although incomplete, the data appears to be a call for integration with a suitable containment vessel equipped with dedicated processors and power regulation systems. This data is of great interest to the Deathless Circle given the efforts to reactivate and expand their control over the Jovian infrastructure present in the Zarzakh system, and particularly aboard the ancient Jovian station known as the Fulcrum. Together with the element containment vessels and coalesced elements, this data can be handed to the Deathless Circle at the Fulcrum in return for Deathless Circle reward chips. And then elemental containment vessels. This containment vessel has been retrieved from a sleeper artifact site and appears to be designed with a receptacle and regulation device for the strange and powerful coalesced elements associated with drifter hives. Although this containment vessel is only one component, evidently intended to be used with an array of other devices and specialized control algorithms, it should provide the basis of a power system capable of trapping the energies of the coalesced elements. Devices of this kind are of great interest to the Deathless Circle, given their efforts to reactivate and expand their control over the... So we're basically building batteries. We're building batteries. We're taking coalesced elements, putting them in the containment vessels, and putting in the data that knows how to control them, and then that allows to extract the energy off of the elements in order to boot up the Jovian structure. Together with the element control data and coalesced elements, this containment vessel can be handed into the Deathless Circle. Blah, 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 blah. Neat. And of course, all of the elements kind of give weird things too. This strange, unreal aspect of this object plays havoc with your havoc with your mind. The distortion is interfering with the signal reception and hindering decryption. Despite this, one strong repetitive motif is breaking through the chaos. A single repeating concept: Barbican. And then the coalesced element just says an amalgamation of various shimmering elements. Its power unyielding, unwavering, and ultimately demanding. Yeah. Fuel cells and potentially even databanks. Is the name Antikythera tied to the Thera system in any way, or is it just a coincidence? It is not a coincidence per se, but it has to do with the root of those words, right? So Thera was an island in Greece that was like destroyed, right? Now, in Thera, or on the island of Thera, was discovered the oldest computer device, or what could be seen as a mechanical device with like gears and stuff that we've ever discovered. And that is known as the Antikythera device. That's where those names come from. So this is the Antikythera mechanism. You mean Thera? Yeah. Okay. Yes, Thera is still around, but it was destroyed? Ancient Thera. Round volcano island now known as Santorini. Early in the 15th century BC, when the volcano erupted, resulting in a significant change in the shape of the island and killing many of the Minoan inhabitants. So it comes from, I think, that era. And they're connected, right? I am right that they're connected. I think. Now I got to check.
There you go. One question, and we're off to the deep end.
Hey, this is how this works, man. No, it comes from the island of Antikythera. I'm just wrong. Okay. Yep. Ancient off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera. So yes, they're just two different Greek islands. And it's been reformed as part of the municipality of the Kythera Islands. Got it. Cool. Now we know. Deathless NPCs were the NPCs that you fought in the Shadow War sites, and if you paid close attention, there have been buy orders for all the Shadow War data cores and relay keys, etc., in Curse and Venal for months. Yes, that is true. That is correct. If you watch my stream, you probably know that. But also, the Deathless NPCs were also the smugglers from the Concord event a year before that. What's up?
Now you can actually even see which part of the Deathless Circle is most likely behind it.
That's true. There are the different Deathless Circle corporations, which I don't know if we've covered yet.
No, not yet, not yet. But it's one of those cool things where just show info on things. Read the description. You might learn a thing or two, or pick up on things where you go, wait a minute, does that mean anything?
Yeah. So we read the Deathless Circle thing before, but let's go ahead and look at the member corps. We have the Deathless Custodians, the Wraiths, the Harada Oki Caravan, and the Satori Horigu Epistemetics. So let's start with the Custodians. So the Custodians are going to be important because they're the relationship that you need to have to use the Fulcrum. Yeah, no kidding, Lorelite. I bet you appreciate having all the focus away from certain areas. The Deathless Custodians are primary engineering and logistics wing of the Deathless Circle, and notably responsible for the maintenance, expansion, and defense of the ancient Jovian outpost known as the Fulcrum. The Custodians have their own research and development group focused on the Fulcrum, Jovian Stargates, and other notable sites in the Zarzakh system, but also working closely with the other divisions of the Deathless Circle. While their most cutting-edge research and deepest delving into the technology treasure house that is the Fulcrum are closely guarded from prying eyes, the Custodians are rumored to be working on projects to expand the capabilities of the Fulcrum, develop new spaceship technologies, and even advanced cloning techniques. If there is any truth to these whispers, it would seem that the power of the Deathless Circle is set to grow even further. Next, we have the Deathless... Which one is this? No, this is the different one. This is the Wraiths, the Deathless Wraiths. The Deathless Wraiths are an elite information, espionage, and smuggling wing of the Deathless Circle, with members drawn from amongst the earliest associates with the Deathless, and an emphasis on the arts and crafts of space navigation and combat. The Wraiths also function as the main command and combat group of the Circle. In common with many pirate organizations in New Eden, the Wraiths are by no means the only group in the Circle that carries out the tasks it is specialized in, but they are generally considered to be the tip of the spear when it comes to espionage and technology acquisition operations. So, that's who. While the Wraiths are deferred to on many issues, the true leadership of the Deathless Circle resides with the Deathless and his closest advisors and most trusted operatives. Now, the Harada Oki Caravan. This is important because that makes it clear that this is a Thucker group. In the past, the renegade Harada Oki Caravan was considered to be little more than a pirate prying on anyone unfortunate to cross their winding path through the stars. While this view contains an element of truth, for the Harada Oki have certainly carried out their colony raids and taken ships for plunder in their time, the reality is that they are primarily hard-headed pragmatists with strong emphasis on the practicalities of survival in deep space. While this has meant putting their interests before those of others on many occasions, it has included in them a deep communal sense of loyalty and an admiration for prowess in any skill useful for living in space. They disdain the Mimitar Republic and consider the Thucker tribe's leadership to be fools. With deep links to the Thucker organized crime and the so-called clanner renegades of Thucker society, such as the infamous Sekal clan, the Harada Oki have been the target of Republic and Concord law enforcement agencies. With the emergence of the Deathless Circle and its membership of the organization, the RoAch Caravan has definitely declared itself an outlaw group beyond the pale of the Republic and tribal law. I wonder if these are the guys that have the city in space, right?
Could be. There's a lot of interesting stuff in those descriptions. Like you could see they're start stretching.
The Thuckers were working on city ships.
Mm-hmm.
When we never saw anything about it. These guys are specialized in long-term space living. So, you know, making their own version of like a world arc makes a lot of sense. And then finally, of course, last but not least, from the Caldari, we get quietly founded many years ago with an injection of untraceable capital, the Caldari corporate origins of Satori Horigu Epistemetic would seem to make it an unusual addition to the coalition of smugglers and mercenaries. The corporation was recruited to the Deathless Circle for its long-standing expertise in the advanced faster-than-light propulsion and communication technologies, accepting readily given the irresistible prospect of access to rare and ancient Jovian technologies. Named after the old Rada concept phase, meaning razor of deep understanding, or alternatively, waking blade, the Satori Horigu Epistemetics is a corporation with diverse membership and has always emphasized free movement of technology and information for whoever is willing to pay the right price, regardless of national affiliations. I just want to double check something. So the word epistemetics, epistemology is the branch of philosophy considered with the very nature of knowledge itself. So this is literally Oxum Razor, the corporation. But like a ship city. Hold on.
The city ships. Pets misbehaving?
No, I'm looking up the details. So this is from 2019, August 1st. We see this Thucker tribe. No, wait, hold on. Where is it? Does it say it here? Yeah. Thucker tribe deny claims of militarized city ship project hidden in drone regions. Epistemetics? Epistemics? Hold on. Epistemics. It's epistemology. I know that. Any idea what we might see in Zarzakh when we deliver that stuff and unlock more capabilities, additional sites? What's in it? I don't know, man. I mean, like, obviously, hopefully we'll be able to dock in it soon. Battleships are the only, yeah, the population of only a few thousand. It's more like a town. Yeah, that's true. But also the thing is, like, world arcs seem to have their own manufacturing systems. Like they are, again, cities unto themselves. I don't know if Frozen Fallout's still watching. Hold on a second. He messaged me asking why he's not on the supporter list, and he is. He's listed as a co-designer. There you go. Maybe Zarzakh will unfold and become a giant mecha. It would be funny if, like, the fulcrum is just one piece and, like, another piece is supposed to lock in the top or something like that.
That would be wild.
I just want to be able to dock in it.
Soon.
Yeah. No kidding. All right. Let's see. Now then, the other thing that we do need to get is we need to go to unsecured data sites and forgotten relic sites. And now these things are guarded. and historically have not been that valuable unless there is a Talican wreck inside. The Talican wreck are what's used for the reverse engineering T3 cruisers and T3 destroyers, but the data site, the actual cans to hack, generally speaking, weren't considered to be worth that much compared to the loot that you can get by killing the rats there. But now we have these other doodads in these. And I can only assume that the higher class wormholes will have more of the doodads, but that's just a guess. It's my belief that the Fulcrum is a Jovian mothership. Would explain why it's so big and the Deathless are having to retrofit docking services. I don't know, man. It looks like a station.
The description just mentions that it's been abandoned for a long time as a station, and that there are just large chunks that are just missing, and other parts that are still in relatively good shape, but they'll have to be reconnected or repowered or repurposed to be usable again.
Right. And so Trig technology is actually pretty similar to Jovian technology in a lot of ways. So it is very possible that at some point the Deathless will turn his eye on Triglavian technology as well. Right now, the Jovian technology is to match with the actual Fulcrum itself. But, you know, the Trig are from at least the same time period as the Second Jovian Empire. So, and of course, you know, he had interest in the Shipcaster, which he's now building. Well, yeah, the Shipcaster is trig-based, exactly. Well, yes, 100% trig-based, right? Yes. It was the Deathless guys that were going after the, no, it was the Guri Malakan that was going after the Jovian tech, wasn't it?
Yep.
That seems odd.
Well, it was the Guri Malakam that were raiding the direct Jovian observatories.
So,
Or at least when you walked them, you saw they were wrecked. It could have been that they discovered ones that weren't derelict yet, but cracked them open and started going through everything.
Yeah. Probably.
But we do know that based on what they were showing, that it's plausible or likely that, especially in the trailer where you have the Kaldari double agent that went to the Garistas and the Angel Commander, like that could be very well that the Guri Malakam did one part of the puzzle and they accepted the invitation, and based on their parts of getting the observatory bits and pieces.
I just fucking figured it out. The invitation happened months ago. Us raiding the Guri Malakan was because they were going after the Jovian structures because they received the invitation. And then once they succeeded in the invitation, that's when the video footage of it was leaked. So that video footage took place months prior to us actually seeing it.
It's possible, yeah. Or
that's the missing piece, because why would the Guri Malakan be going after Jovian technology out of nowhere when everybody was focusing on the Shipcaster? Exactly. They were getting the navigation doodads from the observatories. It would have been really cool if we'd killed them and gotten the doodads first, and like that would have been our first sign that there was something weird going on, but you know, whatever.
Misdirection. It's an important thing to achieving your goals.
I think that that's a really cool idea. That's my headcanon at the very least. But so that is an interesting question, which is how is he going to power the Shipcaster? The star is an AO blue star. So the Guri were in the Shadow War sites too, though? No, actually, they were just mercenaries. And that's now been confirmed that those were the Deathless. because he needed the technology for the shipcaster he's building. Yeah, the mothership idea, I don't like it. Because I think we've seen some pictures of Jovian ships.
The one thing to keep in mind, though, is CCP is really good at playing the long game, and just because things don't make sense now doesn't mean they will remain that unclear with what you can discover in the next couple of weeks and months, because there's stuff to find out in Zarzakh alone, and then piecing the other things together. Like, the info is coming one way or another.
It is extremely early days yet, and we have a lot more to figure out when it comes to how this is going to happen and whether or not there's going to be extra stages to this. We do know that as of right now, we can get the destroyers, so we should start seeing those on the market for insane amounts of money by the end of the day, and start to see them further into circulation within the next few weeks or month, over the next few days, weeks, months. The battle cruiser has not been added to the game, so it isn't part of this. It isn't in play for this event, but that makes it very similar to the event leading up to Uprising, where we were able to get the exploration ships, but then the battle cruiser and the destroyer showed up after the fact. Yeah. But I'm really excited that they are, like, if nothing else, this is a clear signal that the Jovian is back in play, that the CCP is interested in exploring Jovian stuff again very directly. And that combined with the hiring of Uriel as CCP Demiurge has me quite nervous.
Well, the thing is, like,
that's right. It was BCs were early access to
CCP, at least from Delicate Zero. He mentioned that they're just looking at things where once it becomes interesting or where it matches up, they'll pick up storylines again. So the stories that we're seeing or the lore that we're dealing with, we really should consider them chapters. Like, this has happened in this chapter, and then later on it could connect to something else. It could connect to another thing, but just because that chapter is done doesn't mean that the story is over. And yeah, there's probably a lot more to tell about the Jovian story.
Any comments on the SOCT putting up buy orders? Of course they are. I think they haven't actively done anything personally in a while. No, the SOCT. So the SOCT, the head of the SOCT is Matashi Reich, and SOCT is now one of the 5 points of the Concord star. And Matashi Reich has been incredibly concerned about all of this stuff. Like, he's the guy that told us to go after the Guri Malakan during the previous event. He's the one that paid 50 billion ISK for each Stargate once they were discovered. You know, the SOCT are highly concerned with the abuse of Jovian technology, as they would put it. How do you do any of this content? The easiest, most direct way to do this content is by running sleeper data and relic sites. Now, those are going to be harder than normal data and relic sites. I do recommend do them with a team, or be prepared for them, or at least do your homework about them, because they are effectively combat sites. Trigs. I don't think the trigs are the sleepers are the architects. Well, the Deathless can plug into the station because clone technology, or the capsule technology altogether, is Jovian technology. Like, all of us capsuleers are utilizing Jovian technology to do. If you look, hold on. Here's a fun fact. This is one of my favorite trivia questions, which is that what is the only ship you can fly in the game that is built by the Jovians, or the only Jovian ship in the game? And the answer is the capsule. So if you look up the capsule, it straight up says Jove. What is the usefulness of plugging into the station? Think about it. We plug into a ship, and now we have access to all of the ship operations just at a thought. Now imagine doing that with a station. Now imagine doing that with a station that's hooked up to the Jovian information network. That's pretty big. None of the corruption and suppression mechanics are going to be in play until the 14th of November. I also think that that's what they mean by the station feeds on him, is because, you know, Jovian technology is designed to interface with the mind that's connected to it. Not in the same way though, Malak, I don't think. I think that that's our capsule that's hooking up to the, like, we hook up to the capsule and the capsule hooks up to the Citadel, as opposed to him jacking directly into the Golden Throne. Correct. I mean, obviously, modern capsules aren't manufactured by the Jove because they're not around to manufacture things. But the point here is that the very technology that makes somebody into a capsuleer would probably make you compatible, or at least close to compatible, with what the Deathless did. Isn't the Jove station too much power information for them or us? Does it not need to get destroyed sooner or later? Spoken like a Concord loyalist, man.
You have to keep in mind that even though at the time the Jove were the least advanced, by now they are like leagues ahead of what the Empire technology has. So just because with the better understanding of, say, the sleepers, the drifters, the Triglavians, they might be able to understand more about Jovian tech, but more like, oh, so now we know what this does, or now we can know why we can use this a little bit. Everything else, still not a clue how it operates, what we can do with it, what purpose it has.
Right. And it's obviously not fully booted up either yet. Now, do you think that the difference in appearance of the Deathless means that something, or CCP just not ready the first time that they showed the Deathless? I think that the Deathless looked different a year ago because he wasn't hooked up to a station. I think that that's a more recent, like, I think that he found it after the Concord event last year.
That opening speech in the trailer, though, it's so ominous. Yeah, ominous.
Yeah.
With like you get things back, but it does feed off of you, where you go, wait, what?
Yeah. Fulcrum is a very old station, so the Jove built it weren't exactly concerned with lesser users that would connect to it. Yeah, also the Fulcrum appears to be like second generation or second Empire Jove, along with the, or is it second or third? I guess it'd be, it's actually hard to say, honestly, because I don't think we know whether or not the observatories were second or third Empire either.
The very interesting part is if you read the description info of the Fulcrum, then it mentions that it's hang on, let me double check again. That it's Vulcan Depths, space-based colony. It's an away station, so it's more like they had this network with outposts that were multi-purpose. And if you look at the description, you read it, you let it sink in. It's like, wait, hang on,
Let me
this
read
is
it real quick.
one. There could be so many more. Like, what does it mean? What can it do?
So the Fulcrum is an ancient Jovian outpost at the heart of the Zarzakh. From the Deathless Circle, projects its power and exerts the will of its enigmatic leader. Properly speaking, the Fulcrum is that part of the ancient Jovian structure occupied and made active by the forces of the Deathless Circle and their pirate allies. The name has come from to be applied more generally to the massive megastructure the Jove left behind when they abandoned their old home and the core regions of the New Eden generally. So this is Second Empire Jove. The dark and echoing vaults and depth of the Fulcrum are testament to how long the Jove made use of this outpost, which evidently functioned as some sort of combination of space-based colony, research facility, and way station. Amidst the ruinous gaps left when the station was abandoned by the Jove, there are pockets where intact chambers and banks of strange devices remain. While much is no longer in place, the outpost retains a significant amount of its city-scale infrastructure, and large sections remain unexplored and potentially filled with opportunities and hazards alike. So yeah, when we're talking about the Fulcrum, we're actually only talking about a small piece of this structure, the small piece that we've actually managed to gain access to.
Meaning there could be more to come.
The Jovian ships were taken out of the game. Like, you were able to technically have, like, the Eidolon and stuff, but, like, literally the models and everything, I believe, have been completely removed from the game now. But also, like, weird shit like that happened back then. So the Fulcrum is to them what the POS are to us. I wonder if this is, like, the information hub by which the observatories were built, right? Like, they all report to somewhere, right? Like, this seems like it would be, like, a centralized information database. But also, it's worth noting that the Fulcrum is smack dab in the middle of New Eden. I don't know about that particular example, Jeff, but I do remember there was a time where the CCP accidentally, one of the CCP accidentally didn't have their power plug-in in, and so CCP, or somebody managed to kill him, and it dropped the Polaris frigate, and then CCP had to go to the people and be like, ha ha ha, very funny, congratulations on getting your frigate, we're gonna have to take that back now, here's a bunch of Plex to make up for it. Yeah, the cockroach kill. That's what it was. It was a cockroach, wasn't it? Yes. The cockroach died to a Polaris. Or the cockroach died and dropped the Polaris. That's what it was. Which the Polaris frigate requires a skill. So Omnipotence 5 is required to fly the Polaris, but it's also required to train Omnipotence. So in order to train Omnipotence 1, you must first have Omnipotence 5. Let's see. I may actually wrap this show up early so that way we can jump into things if we don't have too much more to talk about.
No, not really from my side. Just hopefully people picked up on, hey, just go in there, read the description. You can pick up on a lot. And this is the part where I noticed that my energy is kind of spent for now. So I'm going to have to tag out.
Excellent. So to summarize, the new event has started. It is going until November 14th, which is the release of the game, or of the expansion. We will be working for the Grissus or the Angels. What you can do is you can go to sleeper data and relic sites in wormhole space and or drifter wormhole hives and collect the doodads in the data and relic sites, as well as build the coalesced elements, which are the things, the doodads that we've always been able to get from the hives. Combine those together and turn one of each of them into the Deathless in order to get a token that can be taken to either of the empires, either of the pirates, the Angels or the Grissus, for 50 million ISK, or a BPC for either the Mamba or the Merkabah, respectively. But those have to be turned in at the Fulcrum, which is, of course, another critical danger point. So there's lots and lots of danger in this. It's wormhole sites. There's these drifter hives. There's the Fulcrum. So I don't think it's clickbait to say this is the most dangerous event in EVE history. Are you excited to be running it, Dutch? Or do you leave?
I'm still here. I'm still here. Don't worry. No, we're still waiting. Like, maybe we'll have a Drifter Hive fleet this weekend.
Well, either way, I need you to go and get rest. Don't let the bug kick your butt. You know, we need you to be up and at 'em and good to go as soon as possible.
And that's why I just said, like, hey, it's starting, like, this is the moment where I'll have to tag out soon.
Yep. Well, 070 you, Dutch.
Thanks for having me, and everybody, thanks for, oh, wait, I'm just going to shamelessly plug for a moment. Thank you,
Yes, plug your pluggables.
everybody who voted for me on CSM. Thank you very much. I made it to top 20, which, considering that I'm also dealing with, I'm competing for votes with people like Mike Azariah. It's amazing. The first count of the total ballots that had me on it, it even put me at number 11. So thank you very much for the support. We'll get there one day. Stay tuned for the ARC Discord if you're interested on the Drifter Hive fleets, and keep watching these videos and streams and old videos of Ash, because you might pick up on things where, oh wait, that's happening now? Yep, there's a video about that in the past.
Is ARC recruiting?
Not right now, no.
Okay.
But you don't have
Well, if you want to get involved with the largest, most active role-playing community in EVE, you can't. They're not recruiting.
Yep. No. Here's the thing. You don't have to be a member of the ARC Alliance to be part and help out with the ARC community.
That's right. Hop on the ARC Discord. I'll probably remember to throw a link down below.
Okay. Everybody else, stay safe. Have a good one. And good hunting, and see you out there.
07 Dutch. And 07 to all of you. This has been a good day. Tomorrow, I want to try to do some more practical examples. Try to spend today getting some fits and practice under our belt for a fleet tomorrow. I also have some ideas for other shows to do coming up. So if you are, make sure to get involved in or if you're not, make sure to get involved in my Discord, the Convocation of Empyreans Discord, in the EVE Universe channel and in the supporter channels, where I'm talking to people and trying to get inspiration of what to do. And you can tell me, hey, don't take a day off, go stream, whatever. I accept peer pressure. But I do want to thank all of the people that do get involved in Convocation of Empyreans, my members and my patron supporters. All of you make this absolutely possible. And actually, all of you who have been liking my streams, the last few have gotten a lot of likes, more than today's. So you might want to fix that. But that has led to some really good, they've been out there and a lot of people have seen them, which is really good. I still have the Drifter Hive video that I will link, or you can find just Ashrathi Drifter Hive. It's from like 2 years ago. The station description makes me want to just explore it in Vanguard. I know, right? All right. Well, I think. Oh yeah, I've got merch stuff. We've got other stuff. I don't know. I had something. Oh, if you want to help make the show possible, we have ISK rewards up for editors and other people helping as staff. And oh yeah, the invited are recruiting. So if you put in an application to the WILL is the ticker, but Order of Thelemic Ascension, and hop into our Discord, we can get you involved. We're going to work on a recruiting process, but that's where we're at right now. And the invited is a new alliance designed to forwarding the advancement of the Deathless's efforts, and also getting involved with the Deathless as easy as possible for as many people as possible. So if you want to help out with that, we are recruiting both individuals and corporations. Just go ahead and hit me up for more information. With all that said, thank you guys so much for showing up and being here and hanging out and watching the stream and sharing it around and all that kind of stuff. If you're hearing this right now, if you are hearing this, whether it's live or not, if you've made it this far, you are one of my heroes. But I also want to give extra special thanks to my top patrons: Abyssus, Aikawarazu Chan, Arkas Ilring, Belligerent Neckbeard, Black Rose Noble, Dajat Lemmont, Drake, Golden Age Stories, which is now being changed to Federation Frontline Report, who was here earlier, make sure to go check him out. He is also a top supporter of the stream, so appreciate it. Jay Kuhn, Lumi, Midnight Space Monkey, Milk, Not Just Fun, Seeds of Plenty, Ceratolin with No Eyes, Show Dinar, Syliana Vel'ash, Tgen Tgen, Nephilim, Grendel, Yantey Lepouf, Zaul Nex, Zero, as well as my Immortal tier supporters, 745 MPSI, Arydanika the Queen, Evo Leet, May, Malak Starfire, Merc Utan, Nihilum, LM1, Sheesh, and Rid. Thank you all so much. Do you prefer subs on YouTube or Patreon? So I have a $1 tier on YouTube that will give you access to the emotes and early videos if I release them. Patreon, I sometimes do extra stuff for the Patreon stuff, but I would recommend at least having the $1 membership, just so you have the membership stuff, and then you can have more stuff on Patreon if you want, or you can just have a membership. That's fine. Yes, and also thank you to my my guests, Dutch Gunner and Frozen Fallout from Federation Frontline Report, for giving their insights into both what's coming and FanFest. That's right. And with all that said, I have been Ashrathi, the voice of New Eden. And until next time, I'll see you in space, and maybe soon on the ground. 07. As above, so below, baby.
Bring on the wrecking machine. For every city